everybody, welcome to Render Time, the show all about video and video production. Today, we're stepping away from the nuts and bolts of things and getting into something a little bigger, inspiration. Today, we're talking to my friend David, a YouTuber and a woodworker and an all-around great guy, and we're going to dive into the subject. So, let's get going. All right. Hey, welcome to Render Time. My name is Eric. I'm an editor with Market Scale. Today, we're talking about something that is so important and a lot of times overlooked. How do we get into inspiration? How do we find it? Where does it come from? What do we do with it once we get it? Today, I'd like to bring in my friend David, the creator of the YouTube channel Make Something, David Picciuto. David, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thanks for doing it. So, Dave, let's talk a little bit about Make Something. How did it get started? How did this whole thing get going?
So I started my career as a graphic designer. That's what I went to school for. And I got a job at a couple local agencies. And then that kind of turned into web design. And I just spent all my time on the computer, just at work. And then I would go home and I would do freelance work at home. And um, in my spare time, I was also a photographer and I was getting ready for an art show. And I went to get some of my prints framed, and the cost of custom framing was crazy ridiculous. And I was like, I wonder if I can do that myself. And so I looked into it, I bought a saw, and I started watching some YouTube videos. This is like 12 years ago. And I was like, I really, really enjoy cutting up wood, taking large pieces of wood and making them smaller. I enjoy that so much. I think it was getting away from the computer all the time really helped. And so I, I bought a few books, I started watching videos, and then I was like, well, I wonder if I just start documenting the process of what I'm doing online. I see others doing it. Maybe I can do that as well. And then it just took off. It consumed my life. All I wanted to do was make videos about woodworking. And at a couple of years in, I had enough of a following to quit my job and just work for myself.
Yeah, I remember when you made that leap. It was really exciting. You're one of the first people I met that was not in a band, but was like doing their art for their living. You know what I mean? It was pretty cool. Although you are in a band too. But
Yes, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think we were working together at that time when I left, right?
yes, I was working at the same ad agency that you were at, and then you said, "Hey, by the way, bye.
Yeah.
I'm going to do
Our
this thing." So I thought that was
our
pretty cool.
bosses, we had there were two bosses that ran that ad agency, and they were so surprised when I put in my notice. They had no idea what hit them,
Yeah.
and it was the most awkward moment of my life because I was friends with these two guys, and I was saying, "Hey, I gave them a 30-day notice. I'm giving you 30 days. I'm moving on." And then there's this horrible awkward silence for like 30 seconds of like, "Wait, what? We Are you going to another agency?" And I'm like, "Nope, I'm going to do the YouTube thing." And it wasn't super common back then. And here we are.
Yeah. That's something we might want to circle back to too, is when you're ready to, bet on yourself on this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when you started Make Something, you started with a handful of followers. How many subscribers do you have now?
Uh, I- 800 and some thousand. Like, I think we're getting close to 900,000 subscribers.
That's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Uh, so what does it take? And I know that it's a very expansive answer, but what does it take to grow your channel and keep it going? What is the main thrust of what happens to make that happen?
And I think being a YouTuber is a huge dream. I see these polls all the time of like that's what kids want to be. It's like it's the job they want to be more so than an astronaut or whatever. And I think you really, really have to enjoy the video making process and what you're making videos about. That's number one. It's not about just being I'm a YouTuber. I can shoot video for a couple of hours and then relax and hang out with my buddies for the rest of the day. It consumes my entire life. It's all I think about. It's all I want to do. It's all I really, really enjoy making videos. I enjoy working with wood. Uh, Yeah. And I think the big failure for a lot of people is they just like the idea of being a YouTuber and not really enjoying the process.
Yeah, I agree because it's kind of like doing a podcast. You have to stick with it. You have to keep doing it. You can't just do it when you feel like it. It's got to be regular. It's got to be
Yeah.
consistent. So, with that, where do you get your inspiration from? I know that seems like a pretty ephemeral and question, but I mean, what is it that really gets your juices flowing when it comes to creativity and enacting that kind of stuff?
I think about this a lot, and I think my answer changes for this a lot. But it's kind of hard to describe, but it's about being open to things all the time. If you're driving in your car, uh, be inspired by what is around you. Like you see, I sometimes I still go back to my graphic design days. I judge every billboard that I see, whether or not I think it's a good design or a bad design, and I try to find the things that I don't like and what I do like. Inspiration for me is I don't pay too much attention to other woodworkers. I'm always trying to look for something outside my circle. So I'm trying to be inspired by nature or the design of a building, um, and product design. And what can, like, I'll look for those little elements that I see outside of woodworking. How can I bring that into what I do?
And so is there like do you kind of have like a method to your madness on a daily regular basis? Is it like a thing you get up and work out or you watch a show or is there like any kind of rituals that you have?
I do have a ritual that really doesn't have too much to do with the creative process, but maybe it does. So I wake up. First thing I do, I grab a glass of water and then I go for a 30-minute walk. And so I am trying to be on my walk within 10 minutes of waking up. And that 30-minute walk is there's no headphones. It's just me and my thoughts for 30 minutes. And it's just a really good calm way to start the day instead of waking up looking at your phone and doing all this. And it's just it sets the tone for the rest of the day. And then after my 30-minute walk, I do a 10-minute meditation, and then I try to have, and then morning stuff, shower and everything, and then I try to have like a good 20 to 30 minutes of just playing on the internet before I get started. I'd like to ease into my day. So after the walk, the meditation, the shower, just grab my laptop. If the weather's nice, I go out into the porch and I just watch YouTube videos, play around in the internet. And then by 9 a.m., it's time to get to work. So I have a nice little routine that just sets the tone for the rest of the day.
That's great. I love the idea of like being with your thoughts without any distractions for that first, that from the jump, kind of getting that going. I think that's cool. All right. So, what about things that might inhibit your creativity that get in the way? What have you found that got in the way, or that you had to move out of the way? What kind of things that you can
It's
encountered?
my own head for sure. Without a doubt, it's like it's my own thoughts. It's um I have found myself receiving too much input because I would always find myself I'm a tutorial junkie. And so I subscribe to all these different tutorial websites, Masterclass, um, lynda.com, which I think turned into LinkedIn training, and a bunch of other ones because I'm always trying to just learn new techniques, things, whether just creative stuff in general. Even if I don't have any desire to work with concrete, I'm still watching how to do art sculptures with concrete. And I found myself getting too much input and not enough thinking about my output. And I keep thinking to myself, oh, if I just maybe I'll find something on Pinterest and I'll that spark will happen that will cause me to sketch up something and then make that thing. And it doesn't really happen. I think it's just more of that addiction. It's that social media addiction. So to try to get away from that, I've canceled all my yearly subscriptions to all these tutorial websites, and they're slowly fading away. And I've just been trying to do a sketch every single day to try to get past that mental block that I create for myself. And these sketches that I do every day, uh, I, I don't keep track of streaks. I found that streaks are bad for me. I know there's apps that, like make sure you do your meditation every day. You're on a 100-day streak, and then there's exercise and all that. And I found that if I miss a day, then I don't feel like going back into it. So I don't, it's not a big deal if I miss a day, but just doing that exercise, I forgot where I was going with that, but just doing that exercise every day helped with the creative process, removing those mental blocks.
Right, right.
I'm my biggest barrier by far.
And so to that also, I know that working with you in the shop there, I was fortunate enough to be your camera guy for a couple years and help you produce some stuff. W- Uh, what is I know that you're into other things, but it's in you. I find that your journey has been really interesting tangentially to woodwork. So here's woodworking, but then you're also
Mhm.
into these other endeavors that I would never, I don't know anyone else that does some of these things. Can you speak on some of the other things that you kind of got your hands in?
Yeah. So uh, I've always been a musician. I never claimed to be a great musician, but I've always been in bands. I've always played guitar, and I've sung in different bands. Um, I I still enjoy writing songs, and then I picked up photography for a little bit. I was an assistant wedding photographer, and then I would just do hobby, landscape, street photography for a while. And I think the going to school for graphic design is a perfect parallel to woodworking because all the same principles apply. Um, I also work at a recording studio, an audio recording studio for a few years, and so audio engineering was is part of my background, and and then just working at ad agencies and being around other creative people has helped me with what I do now. I've just surrounded myself with creative people. I think that's just that's been the biggest help with what I do now is I've always been around other creative people, other bandmates, working at ad agencies and other creative directors and graphic designers and video editing experts. Like all of that, I just absorb all of that, and somehow all of those things play into being a YouTuber with because I have to take photos of the things that I make. So I got a background in that. The video that I do, photography translates very well into videography, and the
You do
graphic
your own,
design.
you do your own music on the show too, right?
I make all my own music on
Yeah,
on there too. Yes, so um, I really really enjoy making the music for my videos. Plus, like I can justify buying. I just bought a new bass guitar, so I can
perfect.
justify buying an instrument because this is what I do for a living.
This is for work. Yeah,
This
I
is
must
for
have
work.
this.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great. So there's one more thing though that I know that you're into that I literally don't know anyone else that does this, which is your racing
Oh,
thing.
yes.
Let's
So as a kid,
just for kicks and let's talk about that for a minute, even though it literally has nothing to do with anything we're
yeah,
talking about. I think it's awesome. So let's talk about it.
um, I become very obsessed. I find something new to get into, and I'm all in. And so I got tasked with making a trophy for some go-kart, for this go-kart league that runs in my area. And so I made this trophy. I went to the race, and I was like, man, that looks like so much fun. And I used to enjoy watching racing as a kid. It's when I was really young, I wanted to be a race car driver. And so um, I found a go kart for $500. I bought it and started racing. and it was horrible. The cart was horrible. The engine was not up to spec. And so then, being a tutorial junkie, I bought a couple tutorials on how to build an engine from scratch. And there's nothing on. It's hard to find information on go-kart engines. So I took just like a regular car performance tutorial, applied that to go-kart engines, and I learned how to make my own go-kart engines from scratch. And then I just started this like 4 or 5 years ago. I've won 3 races since then. So that is just it's all because I'm obsessed. I go all in. I want to learn everything about this. I want the idea of learning something new is what really excites me. How to set up for a particular track or particular conditions at a track. And most of the go-kart racers that I race against, they don't build their own engines. They pay thousands of dollars for somebody else to build their engines. And then when something goes wrong, which happens all the time in small engines, they have to pay somebody else and they have to rely on somebody else. I didn't want that. And so I can do all of that myself now, which is
It's
crazy.
it's
And
like the most DIY thing to ever be DIY'd.
yeah, and anybody that knows me would be like, "What? You race go-karts? You're not a car guy, like." But I was all in.
Yeah, I remember when you started that, I thought, I don't know anyone who does that, but it seems like it looks like fun, and also it seems like a perfect thing for you because it brings in so many different,
Yeah.
uh, aspects of creativity, so I thought that was cool.
And I would
So
and I one of my favorite things is I would get to design my own livery,
yeah, that was
I would all the racing graphics and as a graphic designer, quote unquote, I don't like a lot of modern racing graphics. There's just something about it that doesn't uh, look good to me. So I get to design my own, and I would pull inspiration from retro uh, NASCAR or IndyCar and bring that into what I do. So I find ways to bring creativity into everything that I do.
yeah, it's really great how I like when I saw videos and photos of your car, and I could tell that you did the artwork for it. It wasn't, it was definitely no mistaking it was you, so that was
Yeah,
cool. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up here in a little bit, but I wanted to go over a couple quick other things. What would be like? What is the thing that keeps you coming back to doing this on a daily basis? What is it? What's the thing that keeps you pushing along?
change. I don't like doing the same thing over and over again. So I've been making YouTube videos for 10 years, uh, full time for 10 years. I've been making YouTube videos for, I think, 12 years now. And I constantly change up the style and the purpose. That keeps me motivated. So recently, over the last few videos that we've made, I've decided to just ditch the step by step how to stuff. I decided to stop trying to create videos to get clicks. Instead, I want to make stuff that I want to make, but I want to film it in the most cinematic way possible and make little 13-minute cinematic documentaries. That's the goal right now. And because I'm trying this new style, and it's more about the inspiration and the why we woodwork instead of how to do the woodworking. This has just completely motivated me. It feels like a new job. So
That's great. I
change.
love that. Yeah, I mean, it's so cool because I think a lot of times with creativity, especially with something that you do, you don't need to know A to Z as much as getting immersed in the whole vibe, you know?
Yes.
I know that
Yes.
sounds
Yeah.
corny, but it's like, when you watch like those later Tony Bourdain episodes, he didn't even get into a kitchen. He just walked around and met people and kind of felt the
Yeah.
culture. And that was really what kind of made me feel like I have to go make more stuff.
Right. It's and especially with woodworking, there are many budgets. Maybe you have a $4,000 table saw, maybe you have $150 table saw. Basically, they do the same thing. There are some limitations there. And so I don't want to, there's just so many ways to do every single thing in woodworking. And I just didn't want to cover the whole broad spectrum. I just want people to be inspired and see something like, man, I can do that. That would be awesome. And plus the satisfaction of looking at a finished piece is just, that doesn't get old. That never gets old.
Yeah, I've got several pieces that you and I made together or that you made separately that I have that I I think it's so cool to because when you look at it, it's not just, "Oh, I bought that at IKEA," or whatever. I know that there was all this blood, sweat that went into it, all this thought, and everything like that. So I think at the end of the day, it really has a spirit to it, whatever that it is. It's pretty cool. So one last question for you. This is a video and video production centric podcast. When it comes to video production, do you prefer shooting or editing? And if whichever one it is, do you have any advice for up and coming either shooters or editors?
Oh man. Um, I guess I slightly prefer the editing. So many YouTubers that I know, most YouTubers, after they become successful and do it full time, find a different editor. I've toyed with this and I realize I love editing so much. It's my final voice in the product. And I really love trying to figure out how to bring out the story and put together these shots. So I think I enjoy the editing more. And my advice is uh, it's the opposite of so much other advice that I've heard is shoot the least amount as possible. So we film for an 8 hour day. I know at the end of the day, I want no more than 1 hour of footage. And I watch a lot of little documentaries on filmmakers, and some directors want as much footage as possible, so they have all the options in editing, and some want very little footage because they know exactly what they want. Everything is storyboarded, and that helps with the editing process because the decisions have already been made of what the feel, what the purpose of the video is. So why spend 40 hours editing a video when you already know what you want? Shoot the least amount of footage as possible.
I think that's good advice. I know as I always find it as an editor and a shooter, when you shoot, you can edit in camera, I guess is what they would say. And
Hmm.
or at least, you know what you need. And so you're not necessarily overdoing it and then sitting on 45 to 100 gigs of stuff you don't ever need. So,
Yeah,
um,
I have an assistant in the shop who helps. It's my brother. He's the one that hits the record button, and I'm teaching him how to be um, a camera guy. He had no experience with it at all, but he is now seeing what my vision is. So it's easy. It's that makes things a little bit easier because I can focus on what I'm doing, and he can move the camera, set it up, and do all the shots. But I'm still editing in my head while filming. I know that we're going to go from this shot, we're going to cut to this shot. I know that this angle always works when I use this particular tool or whatever. And so I am editing in my head.
it's a great idea. It's great advice. David, before we go, tell us how we can find you out there in the wild, wild internet.
My website is makesomething.com. I'm on all the social medias, but my bread and butter is YouTube. YouTube.com/make something.
Great. David Picciuto, make something. Thank you so much for being on Render Time. We really appreciate it. And good luck out there.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And it's good to chat with you, old friend.
Absolutely. Same to you. And thanks everybody for watching. And we'll see you next time.